welcome back to another class of Rhubarb Yoga. So today we're going to look at another type of heart opening pose. We're going to look at Malasana, which is the squat, and we're going to look at chair pose, a great thigh strengthener which really can test our foundations and the strength of our convictions on focus and concentration. One will benefit the other. So with Malasana, we're going to start with that because that's going to give us a great hip opener. It's going to flex up the muscles around the sides. It's also going to release some of the tension in the lower back. And that again will end up giving us a stronger chair pose. And chair will allow us to open the chest in a slightly different way, but also create strength from the foundation of our feet. And as we need that every day to keep moving in the safe direction that we're travelling in, it's the best way to start. So, Malasana can be approached from a couple of different ways. Make sure you've got a block. In case you struggle with flexibility in the ankles and the feet, it's a great way of perching and giving you a secure foundation. If your feet and heels don't quite reach the ground, it doesn't matter, but using a block can just give you that added support and confidence, particularly if you're not familiar with it. So looking at Malasana, let's start from the ground up and go from there. So, Malasana can be approached in several different ways. You can start on your knees and simply hop up. And we're in a form of squat now. This is not going to release the hips quite as much as we'd hoped, but it does depend on your own personal degree of openness in that area. Not everyone has the ability to have loose, supple hips. That takes practice. It takes flexibility, and it also takes a regular amount of focus on those areas. And if that's not something you have the ability to do, or the freedom, it doesn't make you a bad person. It just means it'll take you a little bit of time to feel comfortable in your own squat. Some people have their feet parallel, and some people may splay to the sides. Again, that is to do with the hip rotation. That is down to your own personal anatomy. It does not mean you are doing it wrong. It means that you need to pay attention to your own physicality and accept it. Myself, my feet tend to splay out to the sides, and that works perfectly well for me. It allows me to sink deeper into my hips. However, sometimes I feel that I need my feet to be parallel to access a particular type of pose, like moving into a crow. But we're not talking about that today. So Malasana, let's look down at it. We don't keep our feet together, then our circle of gravity and balance will be destroyed. We need to make sure our feet are at least hip width apart, working with our own anatomy again. So looking down, see how you feel. Look at how, using your hands, if you need to find your own balance, see how your feet feel. Are they grounded? Do they feel open and balanced? If you're bearing weight to one side or another, just flex around and move until you find what works for you. And again, if your feet are perched up, please use a block. It will make a difference to you. Simply put it behind you, bring the heels up, and that may make all the difference in the world. It does not matter where these knees are. What we're looking at is the openness of our hip flexors, creating a suppleness and working movement with our psoas muscle as well. And also the lower lumbar. All of this comes into part as this is our main core and rotational part of our body when we're moving. We don't move from our shoulders, and that is not our main source of motion. Our legs, lower lumbar, hip flexors are all in a rotational axis, and this is where our centre of movement and ability to move comes from. So finding your own comfort area is important, and allowing it to be recognised is just as vital. So heels up or heels down, work with it, discover it, and find out. If you need a block, great. If you don't, it doesn't matter. And if you don't have a block, use a big chunky book. Please adapt what you need to adapt to you. So my own personal Malasana is quite wide. My hips sink. Now once we're here, It's important to find balance, and you will recognise that because you have the ability to keep still. You may find a little bit of openness and stretching along the shins and particularly down to the ankles. That is just your muscles recognising there is effort in that area and accepting it by adjustment. So once we come into our Malasana, I would like you to bring your hands to your heart centre and try and get those arms in front of those knees. If you don't, please don't worry. If they're up here, that is just as good. That is perfect. What we're looking at is bringing our attention to the heart centre, allowing the centre of our chest, our lungs, our collarbone, and the beginning of our ribs and diaphragm to just start releasing, bringing in fresh oxygen, allowing our breath to be deeper, to sink in, and to be more complete. So let's find our space and be comfortable in it. If you need to adjust, adjust. Shift the feet one side to another, allow them to flex, and then adjust again. And you may find the more you sit into this, the more your hips are accepting. The longer you are here, please breathe. It is vital to everyday existence. As long as you're here, your hips will start releasing. If after a while it becomes a little wearing, but you want to stay in that position, perch on a block. That's still a squat. If you feel burning around the ankles, around the lower shins and the calf muscle, it just means that there's a bit of lactic acid building up. And to take that off, prevent cramping, perch on a block. Come out of the Malasana. But allow the body to be familiar in that pose, so that when you go back into it, you have a muscle memory. You're creating a familiarity in that shape. So, in our Malasana, we are creating a heart opener. We're not pushing the chest forward. We're allowing the hips to open to create that heart space. There'll be a light curve in the back. If that starts to ache, use your block. And just be comfortable. If the body feels like it's sinking, sink. This again is creating another space in the hips. This will give us the space to access deeper poses, further advancement and transitions from this shape. From this, like we said, this can be going into crow pose, Bakasana. I'm not doing that now, please don't panic. But this will also give us strength and manoeuvrability. So from this we're going to look at chair pose. Chair pose, thigh strengthener, definitely a heart opener, in as much as that we are reaching upwards, not forwards. And by reaching up, we're coming to the peak of the chest, an important part of our body. Most of us don't deep breathe. We don't completely breathe. We shallow breathe. We may only breathe 2/3 of our lung capacity if we're breathing quite well. So in order to function that 3-part breath, we need to be strong in the pose we're in to activate the breath and the pose together to work. So, from chair pose, we need to stand up first. And if you feel like you need to just ease off from the squat, do a low forward fold just to release the lower back if it's feeling a little bit pinched, or it needs like it just feeling a stretch. And then very slowly roll yourself up, vertebrae by vertebrae, just so we're opening. Releasing. So, chair pose can be feet apart, hip distance, or it can be feet together. You'll discover your own preference for this standing position as you progress. Personally, I like my feet together. I feel more grounded. I have my toe knuckles to touch and a little bit of a gap between my heels. I feel a little bit more balanced. But all of you will discover your own particular preference again. So work with it. So once we have our feet grounded, spread the toes like stars, ground all the way through the fascia of the foot. Bring your feet to your position, or move around, you'll get to it. And then a very low bend in the knee. Now when we bend our knees, we want to roll the thighs in towards each other. And by doing that, you may feel the back of the pelvis open up. And that is the action we want. We don't want to squeeze everything in. We don't want to squeeze the bum in, squeeze the thighs in, squeeze the belly in and become a bit hunched. We need to create a strong foundation by rolling the thighs in. Imagine they are coming together to build one strong muscle. By rolling that in, and our knees are coming together, the pelvis is opening, our foundation is strong. It's not moving. Keeping the hands on the hips until we find that position. As we look down over our knees, we need to make sure our toes are poking out. That means that our balance and our concertina of body is balanced. If we look down and we can't see our knees, it means we're perched too far forward. That will end up creating a strain at the very base of the back, and this is the whole point of chair pose, is to create the opposite effect. So bring those knees back, have a look down, hands on hips, and bend the knees to where you want. If it's a little bit of a bend, that's fine, you're still creating that shape. So once we're in our shape and our chair, keeping our knees, I want you to look down and make sure the shins are parallel as well. You should be able to recognise them following all the way up. And once we're here, hands can be on the waist, or hands can be at the heart. And once we're here, bring those thighs together. And the important thing about chair or any pose that requires a balance is our drishti, our focus, our point of concentration. It can be straight ahead, it can be pointing at the floor. Depending on where our head and eye line is pointed, it could be at the tip of the nose. We could be looking at the third eye between the eyebrows, the ajna, which is the sixth chakra. What we don't want to do is tip our head forward, craning our neck to point up at a point of concentration and ruin the line of the body. So while we're in this and our legs are already zigzagging, follow the eyes to a natural point, looking down, nose, ajna, or wherever we see something, but look at something that is non-moving. That in itself will create a drishti, a point of concentration. You might already be concentrating on the burning in your thighs. This is where your breath comes in. So hands can be on hips, checking our toes are poking out at the front, hands to the heart, and allow the shoulders just to roll. And you may feel that space already at the top of the chest. Please breathe. Please allow that filling up of the lungs. If you feel comfortable, you can raise the arms. The head should not be perched backwards, but in line with the arms, so we're creating a thunderbolt shape. And again, this is where our drishti may change. It may need to rise a little bit as we realign the leg, the head and the arms, or it may need to lower down. Or if we find the arms are not comfortable like this, we can bring it back to the heart. But as we bring our arms up, remember to drop the shoulders. We want to stretch forward, but we don't want to create an over accentuation of the curve of the natural bottom of the spine. That again is going to ruin the strength in our legs. As you evolve into chair, you will definitely discover the heat in this pose. It's definitely a warmth, strong pose. Great for beginning your class after you've warmed through. Don't hit it straight away. You can strain the muscles in your thighs pretty quickly, and they're going to let you know about it for the rest of the day. So let's have one last look at chair. You can also, to create momentum, if you find it difficult at the beginning of your class to get moving, by sweeping the arms along the ground, and that will naturally create that zigzag in the legs, which will give you that shape without trying to creak down into it if you're finding it a little bit difficult. By sweeping down into it, bringing the arms up, that gives you a nice momentum to create your shape. Check your toes are poking, your thighs are rolling in, the pelvis is spreading, bringing the arms up, drop the shoulders, head aligned, and breathe. the tightness out of the neck. Allow the neck to the back of the head to extend up. And this is not a classic heart opening pose, but as the arms are reaching up, all the arms are at the heart centre. There is an expansion around the pectorals, which will just give us a space of breath. Certainly hope you find some heat from that pose. Hope that you enjoy it. And as you develop it and grow through that in Malasana, you find a power through it that gives you some more expansion into your practice. Whatever you do, and however you approach it, accept it. Be courageous. Most of all, have fun. Be well, be safe.